So thank you, ladies, for joining us today in our very first ever session of Coffee Chats. Now, Coffee Chats is going to be just a discussion between all of us. I'm going to get you to each introduce yourselves, and then we're all just going to sit around and chat about what it means to be a grandparent. Now, every month, the end of every month, we're going to have a coffee chat and there'll be different topics. So this month's topics is what it means to be a grandparent in 2022, because our roles have changed as grandparents, and we're certainly not the grandparents that our grandparents were, and probably our parents were. And situations also change with children too. So we're all in different situations here, and that's great because we've all got different opinions. So I'm going to start. I've got 4 grandchildren. Both my girls have got 2 each. So my oldest is turning 10, and the same daughter also has the youngest, and she's only about 7 months old now. So there's a big gap between her, and then I've got a 6 and an 8-year-old with another daughter. Luckily, I get to see them all the time, and it's a really nice relationship. But it's amazing how different each of the grandchildren are and how different their relationship with me is as well. I find that quite amazing, and just the different personalities of how we all work together is very different as well. So we'll go around. So Jackie, you're our young grandma. How old were you when you became a grandma?
Let me think. Well, Alila's 13 and I'm 54. So 41.
Wow.
41. My daughter was 19 and 9 days when she had Alila. So she was the young mummy, the absolute brilliant mum, better mum than I ever was. She's taught me a lot about being a mother, believe it or not. My daughter has. And yeah, so Alila is 13 and Amira is 10, just like your older one.
Mm.
The day before yours, so the end of the month. So, and we had a Fear Factor birthday party for her yesterday, so that was really interesting.
And they're the 2 that you've got?
Yeah, one daughter and 2 granddaughters.
Beautiful. Now, Julie, you're in a very different situation to us. You were also fairly young, Grandma.
Yes, I was 50 when my first grandchild. So yes, I have 3 grandchildren, 8, 6, and 3.5 months old is the youngest one. So and yeah, so that's so 2. So my two sons have, one's got the 2, and then the other one's got 1. So 2 different ones. So yes, and I'm based in Queensland, so they are not close to me. They're all in Melbourne, so I don't get to see my grandchildren very much. So I have to message my eldest son. I need more photos of Lucas, who's the baby. So I got video sent to me yesterday. So I have to remind him every little nudge, I need some more photos. So yes, and all videos he sends. So yeah.
So distance would be a big problem, actually, wouldn't it, with seeing them?
Look, it is, and I am planning to get back as of middle of the year to just sort of have baby cuddles and see before he gets too old. The other one, and the other one I've FaceTimed the other 2. Yeah.
Thank goodness for technology nowadays. It does make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kerry, I don't know anything about your grandchildren.
There you go. Okay, so I have 2 children. Son and a daughter. I have 5 grandchildren. 3 are in Perth, which is a lot further than Queensland to Melbourne. So it's been quite some time. I was trying to work out last night. It's probably 5 years maybe since I saw them in person.
Wow.
Yeah, and my son also is very slack with contact. Although something must have booted him up the bum in the last month or so, because I've actually had video chats with them, and he makes sure that the kids are there to talk to me. So we do the rounds, you know, we talk to the youngest one comes first. She's, let's just say, a little pushy. And then we get the middle one, and then sometimes the eldest is home, and sometimes he's off with friends. So the eldest there, I may have this wrong, but it's going to be close enough. I think they're 10, 8 and 6. And then in Melbourne here, I have my daughter who has a 15-year-old and a 9-month-old.
Oh, wow,
So
that's a big gap for me.
That's a big gap, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So you were also a young nana too, if you've got a 15-year-old.
I was doing a calculation there. I think I was about 47. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but he's gorgeous. Well, he's a teenager, so life's a little bit sucky here and there at the moment, but he's gorgeous. Yeah, yeah. And the youngest one, 9 months, who I'm loving that baby stage.
Well, you obviously get to see the youngest one a lot more too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Di, you're the quintessential grandmother in my eyes. You are always posting pictures of the grandchildren, and Di has 9 and she's numbered them all. So we know that number 4, number 5, number 6, it's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they're all munchkins. I started numbering when they started getting prolific. Yeah, people say to me, oh, you're so lucky to have 9 grandchildren. And I say, well, hang on, I had 4 kids. So you don't get 9 grandchildren when you've got 2. So they are aged, it's lovely actually, because they're quite condensed. So we've got 2 11-year-olds, a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 5, a 3, a 16-month and 6 months. No, hang on, 1.5 and 6 months. And yeah, and those 2 are in the one family, those last 2. So there's only 14 months. They're COVID babies and IVF babies. And they're very close in age. So it's gorgeous. They're going to be almost like twins.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're thrilled. It's gorgeous having them. But both within 14 months. So
that's close. That's way too close, in my opinion.
But it's funny because the those 2 babies are from my son and his wife, and he's my eldest. So he's in his 40s. I think he's 45 maybe this year. And that's his first marriage and first children. So yeah, they're having them a lot younger. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but I had all mine in my 20s, one at 30, I think, whereas today everybody starts much later. From what most people start much later. I won't say everyone, but certainly in my children's case, it was later. Yeah, so they're all really, really close and close to each other. So when we get together, it's quite chaotic, but lovely.
That's fun.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, my youngest is also an IVF and COVID baby. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So with I've got 2 boys and 2 girls. So the eldest has got 2 boys. The second boy has got 3 girls. The next one's got 1 of each, and the last girl has got 2 boys. So yeah, we're pretty even.
Yeah, it's funny how that sort of works out, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
All boys, so yeah, they're all boys. So.
Yeah, I've got 3 girls, 1 boy.
Yeah, so 4 girls, 5 boys. Yeah.
So what does it mean for you personally being a grandmother? What has that meant for you?
Me, we're talking
Yeah,
to?
anybody.
Well, seeing I started talking, I'll go first. For me, I love it. They're very important. I had a not idyllic childhood, so I didn't have idyllic relationships with my mother and my grandmothers I saw and got on very well with up until a certain age, and they were probably my lifesavers in a lot of ways, particularly my mother's mother. Even though I didn't have the relationship with my mother, my grandmother on that side has always been very close. So for me, family is really important. And when I had my 4 and got married and had children, I sort of broke the cycle that was within the family, I guess, in a lot of ways. Having a stable marriage was really important to me, and having all those children and grandchildren that are also close has given me nothing but joy.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Di. That's gorgeous. Yeah. Well, for me, I was never interested in having children, and they just came to me, thank goodness. And I'm very grateful for that. So when the first grandchild came, I went, well, we'll deal with this one. And she's been the absolute joy for me. And then the rest of them have come along. You know, if you can do 1, you can do 2, you can do 3, you can do 4, and they've just been beautiful. And I see a fair bit of all of them, so I'm very blessed with that. I probably do get babysitting duties quite frequently. You know, mum can, and thank goodness I work for myself, because mum, can you pick the kids up from school? So, you know, Nana's at school the whole time, you know, and that's fine. You know, I don't mind that, and I can. If I was working for someone else, I'd be in trouble. But being self-employed and being able to do what I want to do, I just adjust my schedule around the grandkids, and it's really good. Yeah. So how do the rest of you go?
Yeah, I've got it pretty easy as well because of my work. And we've actually just changed to new rosters, and I've adjusted it around to be able to pick up one of my grandkids on the Tuesday. And yeah, but I really treasure the time, and especially when I was the mum, I was the working mum, because I was the solo mum, and I was the working mum trying to always better our lives. So I realised how much I lost as a mother, and I must admit I'm probably making up for it as a grandma. And you know, and being able to, like, I find it really good because I can support my daughter a lot more. Like a lot of the medical appointments, my daughter works at a school, so a lot of the medical appointments I'll go and take the kids. And we just work as a really tight family in that situation. So I've been able to give her more support. My mum was working full time when my daughter was younger, so she could only give me limited support. So I've been fortunate enough with what I'm doing to be able to give the support, and I love it because it's those every single day that you have with them is a day to cherish. You know, even if they tell you the most wildest things, which they do, you get to cherish it and just remember it and make more memories.
Yeah.
Well, I too was a single mum, and my mum used to say to me things to like, yeah, I know I'm not the typical grandmother type. Sorry, I got a life. And she meant it with absolute love and compassion. But the truth was she took off with something that was absolutely a passion of hers. She finally found what she feels she was here to do on the planet. And that happened to coincide with when I was raising my kids. So it was. But she was there, certainly for emotional support, even if it wasn't a lot of physical things like babysitting. I love the opportunity to babysit. It doesn't happen very often. So when it does, most of the time I'm free to do it anyway, but those times that I'm not, I kind of like, can I shuffle that? Because it's just another opportunity to spend a little bit of time with them. And that is, of course, only with the Melbourne too. And now the 15-year-old, I'm lucky if I actually get greeted at the door when he comes. He's usually locked in his room now, playing those damn, the games online and things. But he gives the most amazing hugs even to this day. So I make sure I get a hello hug and a goodbye hug. And he, when I sort of go, come on, and he's there to give it to me. So that's lovely. And then, Mia's, 9 months, and that's evolving. She's starting to get a personality, and there's recognition of my voice on the phone now and things like that. So that's growing, and that's lovely to see. The ones in WA, it's difficult. Even when we do the video calls, I think if they couldn't see my face, they'd probably not even know who they were talking to. But we'll just keep chipping away at that, and hopefully life will open up more opportunities to physically see them and grow it. But I love the little moments that we get on the calls, even if they're just pulling faces at the screen. They're two. The two girls, and then the eldest is the boy. So the boy you barely get 2 words out of. The girls, on the other hand, don't stop talking, and then they get busy and see themselves on the screen. So they're busy for pulling poses and faces and kissing, and it's like, hang on, girls, we're still here. But that's what it is.
Yeah. And Julie, how do you see your role?
Well, I never really wanted to be a grandmother. It just sort of happened. Unfortunately, I didn't have a relationship with the first 2 in their younger years due to my son and my being estranged. He decided to move up to Queensland, and I was in Melbourne. So we didn't have that relationship, and it's sort of like the damage has been done there. So I don't have, we communicate, but that's all it'll ever be. Whereas the little one is actually 4 months old, I realise I do want to have a relationship with that little one, and I will be, as he grows and gets to know me, there will be a lot more phone contact and visits to Melbourne. I want to make sure, and also get them up here as well, so so they can stay here and babysit him while mum and dad go off and go off touring and things like that. So I want to give them that opportunity, and my daughter's looking at babies in the next sort of 2 years as well, so there'll be more grandchildren coming there. So it'll be a different relationship with the new grandchildren, whereas the other 2, it was not a good introduction. I feel I missed out on what it meant to be a grandmother with those 2. It just because I wasn't allowed to be a grandmother. I wasn't allowed to see them. I wasn't allowed to do all the normal things. So I missed out, and that's always going to be something that I can never get that back. So, and unfortunately, I'm not living anywhere near Lucas, which, even when I lived in Victoria, we were still 3 hours away, and I wouldn't have been going down that often anyway, because my mum and dad, they were traveling when I was having children. So they would babysit occasionally, but they were they weren't always hands-on and doing stuff. They never come to the school things and things like that. So I was home with my children. I was married, and so I didn't have the need for the babysitting. So it's sort of something that I've not even thought about with my kids, with their children. So it's something that never really happened with my kids. So so it's more like holiday babysitting will be what I'll be offering. Come for a holiday with Nan. Yeah.
Yeah. Has the realization that you've missed out become more obvious once you've had number 3 than with the first 2, because you didn't have it, so you didn't have anything to miss?
A little bit. I sort of, it was sort of, I wished he was he was the first one, not the third, because it would have been a different experience having the first one. So it was like, and also having another boy in a way, I was wishing he was going to be a girl, because it would have been different. But that's the way it is. So yeah. But look, no, he's a lovely little fella, and the beauty with Guy and Damien, his mum and dad, they're just absolutely normal parents, and they're just bringing him up normal. There's no none of the narcissistic stuff that we were dealing with before. So so it's a different relationship with them. So yeah.
Well, that's lovely. That's really lovely. Yeah. So how were your parents as grandparents? Are you modeling what they did in any way?
Who
No,
gets-
no.
no.
I had my kids had two granddads that were very good at, and my dad in particular would pop in every day straight after school,
Oh,
cut
wow.
up an apple and read their story and then go home. That was his thing.
Oh,
And-
beautiful.
And so, because he lived close to us, and the other granddad we used to see quite a bit too. But I tried to be the grandma that my kids didn't have. So
Yeah.
I tried as a mother or mother-in-law to offer the support that I never got, because I didn't get any parenting, mothering support. So we do that in different ways. Babysitting, yes. Now that we're down at Patterson Lakes, we'll have them overnight. On Friday night, we're having the 14-month-old and the 6-month-old for the first time overnight. So that'll be interesting. I've got a daughter that lives 5 minutes walk from me, so I see those two a lot. But as a grandparent, when I was working, I couldn't be around as much for the first lot. But when my daughter-in-law, who lived quite close to us then, had her third girl, I thought, what am I going to do to help her? And I thought, well, I'm not going to cook for her because I don't cook for myself. My husband cooks and her mum's really hands-on and whatever. So I thought, I said to her, I'm going to give you something that I wish I had had when I had my babies. So I'm going to pick up the eldest two every day, drop one at school, drop the other at kinder, pick up from kinder, bring her home, go to school and pick up the other one and bring them home about 4 o'clock. And that gave her all day to be with just the one little one on her own and not have the pressures of getting to and from school, which I got to say, when I had 4 was a bit of a performance. So yeah, that was my way of helping. I'm not I'll clean the house and do that stuff, because they're things I did from when I was 10 years old and I don't enjoy. So I don't offer those things to my kids, but I am very hands-on. And I remember she rang me one day and said, one of the kids is vomiting and I'm vomiting too. And I said, don't worry, I'll come around. And I went around, and then I was sick. So between us, we're both lying on the couch and one needs a nappy change, and who's going to go? I think I can manage this one. And, and that's my daughter-in-law. So we're very close in that way. I'm very lucky to have 2 gorgeous daughters-in-law that are really like daughters. So, and great son-in-laws too. So I do that hands-on sort of come to the rescue stuff as well.
Yeah, I had an amazing dad who used to drag mum along, and mum had to do things. But I remember having a child vomiting and me vomiting in the bath as I'm trying to clean her up, and mum cleaning the beds. Oh, thank goodness for parents at those times.
I'll tell you a funny story. I was babysitting that daughter-in-law with the 3 girls, babysitting one night for them, and I needed a cup of tea, and I went to the fridge and there was milk there, and so I put it in my tea, and it was actually breast milk.
Breast milk.
So that daughter-in-law says, I'm very close to my mother-in-law. She drinks my breast milk. So I had it in my tea. Oh, very funny.
You didn't know.
I don't know why I didn't realise, but anyway.
You really needed that cup of tea, don't you?
So, Di, how do you say no to the kids when you want to do something? Because you've got an amazing life on your own.
Well, our kids said right from when they first had their own children, we said, we'll help you out. And they go, if you've got something on, tell us. We can make other arrangements. It's not like they haven't got other options. So they can do something else, or they can pay a babysitter. Most of them can afford to pay a babysitter if they need to, or they've got other parents who can help out. And so, yeah, our life comes first. We'll say, no, we can't do that because we're doing this, or or the other. And they go, yeah, that's fine. You know, that was a given right from day one, because they know we like to go out and do things and go away, and that's the life they grew up with too. It doesn't happen that often that there's a clash.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Kerry, do you need to put in boundaries at any time? Or probably not?
No, not really. As I said before, I'd enjoy the opportunity. So it's very rare it clashes. It might be different if I had the other three that are in WA, because they are a handful, and it would probably vary. You know, they've had various illnesses, with particularly the young one. So there would have been a lot more time required had I been close to them, but I wasn't. Her mum actually steps in a lot on that scene. As for boundaries, no, look, I guess I've always had the view, it's more about respect. You know, look, I grew up swearing. My mother was a swearer, and she basically had the attitude, she recognised, I remember the day she told me, she said, look, I can't complain about you swearing because I can swear the damn sailor under the table. She said, but there's a place and a time, and that's what I want you to abide by. So we were growing up with a place and a time, and certainly around my grandparents was not the time. That was like absolutely never. So I have had the same attitude with raising my kids. So when it comes to my grandkids, I'm inclined to do the same thing. I think my daughter and son-in-law are actually more, what's the word I'm looking for? Let's just say strict on him, like the 15-year-old obviously is the only one it really applies to. They're pretty strict on what he can and can't say around the place. If I hear him say it, I usually let it slide, because I find it hypocritical to come down on him when I use it frequently. Again, it's about a time and place. So the boundaries for me are respect, and also the rules of my house are what happens in my house. So whatever happens at home is one thing, but then when you come to my place, or my husband's our place, there's some rules that are slightly different, and I expect those to be abided by. And that to me is just teaching them that there is different places in the world that you're going to have different rules that apply, and you need to be adaptable. So yeah, I guess that's sort of the boundaries that I see from my experience. Yeah.
Jackie, do you have a problem with boundaries?
Not so much, but it's actually interesting. We're talking about what we bring down from our parents. Now, I'm first generation Australian, and I only had my grandma probably up until about the age of 5 here, and then she moved back to Scotland. So I was never a child that got to experience going round to, you know, people would be at school, people saying, oh, I've got to go to my grandma's this weekend. And I was always envious, going, I wish I could. But, you know, being so far away, I never had that opportunity. But one thing being of Scottish descent, traditionally, well, in my family, sorry, I had that off. The emotional stuff was not there. So we, like, even the words I love you really wasn't there in my childhood, because the Scots really didn't talk about it, and they really didn't do the cuddling and everything. So when I met my first husband that came from a European background, and his father was very cuddly, very emotional, it opened up a little bit of my world. But when my daughter was younger, I can remember her, she was about 3 or 4, saying, oh, my daddy gives me heaps of cuddles, but mum's not a cuddly person. So that was a really interesting, so I saw that coming down. So when my grandkids came along, I was really conscious of it. And I actually became more emotional and more cuddly, more kissy, and that with my own kids. And my daughter is, like that as well. But it was actually interesting what you bring down from your parents. And mine was, I brought down non-emotion and to my daughter, but luckily through development and interacting and learning, I actually learned how to be more emotional.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and so the boundaries, I'm really aware of spending that emotional time with the kids, and especially when they're younger, spending that emotional time with the kids. And that's where my daughter probably didn't get it as much from me, because I was the full-time worker. And it was much easier for me to, oh yeah, whatever you want, you can have. And I'll probably give her still whatever she wants, she can have. But I'm a lot more emotional with my daughter now than what I was when she was younger.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that. As far as boundaries concerned with my kids, I still have none. So if they say, Mum, can you do this? I'll just put everything else off and rearrange the rest of my whole schedule to be able to do what it's like, I need to be able to say no. And there's times where I think, no, say no. Oh, okay, I'll do it.
They know you're enabling and you're always going to be there.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. But what's really interesting is my oldest grandchild is very cuddly. And my oldest daughter is not very cuddly, and her two children don't come for those cuddles from me. But because the youngest daughter's child, who's the oldest, comes to me and gives me big hugs and all of this, the other two have been watching. Now all of a sudden I'm getting hugs and wanting to get hugs from the other two.
Nice.
So it's actually, the grandchild has taught the other grandchildren how to behave, which is really good.
Yeah. Oh, lovely.
And Julie, your boundaries would have been very different because you had to set boundaries with your son. Oh, you're on mute, Dal.
I had to protect my own emotional state, so I shut the boundary. I had to put those boundaries in place, and even to this day, I still do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have the same boundaries now with your grandchild?
It was more because it was more protecting my emotional state with the let's say the emotional abuse that I was getting from my son. So it was a case of I removed myself and all of that. So yeah.
You don't know, Julie, maybe when those grandchildren are older, they will want to be in touch with you.
Look, it's certainly possible, and I also know they actually do have a relationship with their grandfather now, which which is my ex-husband. So he also missed out on all of that, but he's been able to, because he's in Melbourne and they see each other a little bit more now. So they do have a relationship there with him and sort of thing. And so yeah, so we talk on the phone. I keep an eye on them, but that's all I can do. So yeah. So
we get lots of cuddles. Our family is very cuddly, and that's because not having that although my dad was very cuddly, but having that difficult childhood, the family unit was very important. But the grandchildren are all very cuddly, but the one that lives close to us during COVID, or the two that live close to us, and we were able to see them because they're in our area and all the rest of it. I said to him, now, you realise that Nanny can't see all of the other kids, and we went through them all. And he said, yes. I said, so you know what that means? You've got to give me 8 more cuddles than you normally give me, because you've got to make up for, and I went through all the names. So he gave me all the cuddles from everybody else. So they understand that.
Beautiful.
How are you guys going with spoiling grandkids? I was in a shop the other day And this lady was saying, oh, and this grandchild had an ice cream in one hand and a lollipop in the other. And I was horrified. I said, if I gave one of my children an ice cream and a lollipop at the same time, I'd be told I wouldn't be allowed to see the grandkids because that's not what you do. And she says, oh, no, well, oh, no, I would, I like being able to spoil them. And if I want to give them, a string of necklaces, of lolly necklaces as well, I will. And I thought, oh, my God, my kids.
Me too. Me too. And they have Cocoa Pops for breakfast when they're here. That's the standard because they don't have them at home. But I get, well, you're having them, so your rules.
That's
so
good.
if we want to give them ice cream in hundreds and thousands, which we do, but they've got to eat their dinner first, all that stuff, they know they're going to get all of that here. But they have to follow the rules as well. But our children say, well, you've got them, so, it's what you want to do.
So is it mainly food that you spoil them with, Di?
Probably. Look, it's a different generation now. Our grandkids seem to have everything. Mine do. They seem to have everything. They don't need stuff. So it's more important to do things like we might take them to the movies or the park or the whatever. I don't tend to buy them things. And now with the older ones, I'm now giving them money, which I never thought I'd do. But on their birthdays, I give them money to buy something that they especially want. And they get a little credit card and they can, they might be saving up for something. Whereas I'm not going to just go and buy anything, And also birthdays in our family, all my kids all put in and we buy one big present for the child. And the same at Christmas. So they don't get
That's a good idea.
They don't get lots of bits and pieces of stuff and they can't remember who gave it to them. And, it's a bit of $30 something we put in and we buy one. And it might be, for one of them, it was being a ranger at the zoo for a day.
All right.
Or tickets to go to one of the worlds down here that has water parks. And so we try and do things that are an experience, or for the little ones, they get big Barbie things or whatever. But we try and put together something that's special from the family, birthday and Christmas. And I think that works really well because I notice when they're little, you'd ask them, oh, who gave you that? And they go, oh, I don't know. They get that many things that we try and make it an experience if we can.
That's great. That's fabulous.
I like that idea.
So and then when they go there, it's something different and they send us photos. Oh, we went and did this and did that. And it's not just another present on the day.
Yes.
Sometimes I think for two of them last year, they got, they had rollerblades. So it was rollerblade lessons. They got to go and do rollerblade lessons, so things like that.
That's really good. That's really clever. That's thinking about it. Yeah.
Well, I happen to have a daughter who's a bit of an organizer like her mother, and she's very good at putting together these sorts of things. So we all turn to her, and she emails out in September and says, now about Christmas, and the older son emails back and goes, it's only September. So she tends to find things that are appropriate.
That's really good.
Even last Christmas, we actually bought them the beds they wanted for the new house. Yeah,
great.
So and that was all put in from everyone, and then they got the beds that they wanted. We bought them. Everyone's bought in and bought the trampoline, and so we do that, and we do that with all the sets of families. But when my daughter was younger, my ex-husband and I, we always bought, even though we weren't together, we always bought the big present together, so there was never that competition.
That's good.
And then Santa always bought the crap, the little bits and pieces of the tree. Yeah. So we never glorified Santa in any way.
Yeah. And Kerry, I've got a girlfriend who's some of her grandchildren are interstate, and she was like, what do I get? And I said to her, now that they're older, why don't you get them tickets to the zoo or tickets to something in Adelaide, you know, that they can go to?
Yeah, I was sort of thinking that it's where my mind had gone when you were suggesting it. It's like, I've given the eldest one money for birthday and Christmases for some years now, because there's always something that he's got his eye on, you know, the next bit of technology or the next bit of this or the new game. But it's always difficult when you don't really know what they're into when they're living that far away. So yeah, and they're still young enough to enjoy that sort of stuff. So good idea. Thank you.
Even the zoo passes in Melbourne, you've got the zoo, Hillsville Sanctuary and Werribee, and you can get, I think it's only around about sort of the $100 mark a year, and they can go to all of them. So you're actually not giving them one experience, you're giving them many experiences throughout the year.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great idea. We've done that before as well. Great idea.
Jules, how do you manage it?
I'm more of a practical person, so I probably, when it comes up, I don't buy presents for the other two, but when Luke's, it'll be practical things like what do they want, what do they need, sort of thing. Yeah, rather than just stuff, because even when he was born, it was like, it took me forever to work out what I was going to get him, because Sky had everything and then my daughter had made all this stuff. So I'm thinking, what am I going to get him? So I ended up being very practical and just did a whole thing up of muslin wraps and nappies and, you know, just bits and pieces, stuff that they're going to go through and use and everything like that. And then a teddy bear as well, just to put some, and a couple of books and things like that. But yeah, so very practical with things. And yeah, and I'd be the same thing. I'd rather, you know, buy them these things that they need and want to do.
Yeah. So I think we've just about covered everything, ladies. So is there anything that you'd like to say to anybody about being a grandma and how our roles have changed or anything?
I'm realising I have realised through friends that I'm very blessed that mine is so close. So one 5 minutes walk and the other's 25 minutes in the car. So yeah, I don't know how I would cope if they moved interstate. One of them's husband suggested moving interstate, and she said, well, you have to take mum and dad as well. So I said, well, hang on, there's other kids here. So yeah, I'm blessed that we are so close, and the family within themselves are close, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is a different world that we live in now. You know, we're sort of the first generation of grandparents dealing with the amount of technology. You know, there's always terms that my grandson's using and I'm going, okay, I'm stupid, what is it? You know, and he'll just explain it. And then I'm still not any the wiser sometimes. But it is a whole different world that they're living in. And I think sometimes, certainly for me, I struggle to not treat him like it doesn't exist, you know, treat him like I treated my kids, insofar as not acknowledging the importance of the technology in their lives that wasn't as intense in our lives. I mean, we've taken it on. I mean, I don't leave the house without my phone these days, you know. And so we've taken it on, but for them it's almost like breathing. And it's part of who they are. And it's difficult sometimes to actually realise the importance it plays in their lives. So I've been cautious, I guess, in some of the things I say about my judgment on it, and attempt to get them to see some different perspectives on it, to open up the possibility that actually their lives could work quite well without the amount of technology that they incorporate. And that's not an easy thing for them to get to see. So I think it's just interesting to open their minds to things that seem to be lost from society, that we grew up with, the simplicities, if you like. I mean, some of those simplicities weren't all good. So don't get me saying that everything we've lost is good, because some of it wasn't. But I think just to open their eyes to some of the things that we've lost that were good can be important.
I don't know if any of you have had your grandchildren do things for school, but our older ones have had to do assignments, and they would ring us up and say, what happened in your day, and and we get onto things like the phone was attached to the wall and all of this, you know, and you had to get up to turn the TV channel on, and you'd warm up the telly when you put it on at the first television. And I was explaining to one of them about photos. You had to take the film to the chemist, and they would print the photos, and half of them wouldn't be any good. And she said, why would you do that? I said, well, that's the only way you could get a photo then, you know. So I explained, you get the opportunity to talk about how different it was when you were in the olden days, when you were a child, and you know how different it is today with technology. But I also get the little ones, the 7-year-old and the 5-year-old will ring me on Messenger. Hi, Nanny. And, you know, they do the funny faces and all that someone was talking about before, but they'll just ring up. I said, oh, what are you doing? She goes, oh, my other friend didn't answer, so I thought I'd ring you. So they, you know, they'll have a conversation on Messenger, which I love, you know, it's that they would think to ring. So that's nice in itself. But yeah, the technology is hard. I find most of the grandkids have screen time, like things are limited. And when they're here, they're allowed to have screen time if they wake up before we do. They're allowed that by their parents, so they're allowed to do that. But then when we're up, there's no screen time or anything. We'll go and do stuff, or, you know, make stuff or whatever. So it is hard. Technology has taken over fantastically in a lot of ways, as we are now on screen chatting to each other. But yeah, I said to my husband, I wouldn't be wanting to bring up kids in today's world. I would not, you know.
No, my youngest grandchild, the 7-month-old one, her grandparents are in the UK, but because of screen time, she knows them. So she sees them on the screen, and, you know, that's Nanny and Pa. And all of a sudden, when they came out to Australia a couple of months ago, she knew who they were, which was really fantastic.
Yeah.
But in saying that, the oldest grandchild in the same family is addicted to screen time. So she has to be limited. So she comes over here, and I probably allow the kids to watch more television than they're ever allowed at home, because I dedicate, you know, okay, we can go on to kids, and I watch movies with them and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a very different world today than what it was when our kids were little.
Yeah, we'll watch a movie when they come, at least one movie. And I've been introduced to, what's the wizard one? I can't think what it's called. The whole story of, I can't think of what they're called.
Harry Potter.
And my eldest granddaughter was like, you mean you've never seen Harry Potter? So she told me what one, I had to watch a movie in COVID lockdown of Harry Potter. And she said, you can watch more. I said, no, I'm pretty right. I've watched one. But that, you know, that sort of thing too.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Descendants. If you girls ever get a chance, go and watch the kids' Descendants. It's the Descendants. It's the children of Hook, of Maleficent, of all the major characters.
Oh,
Wow.
And it's like a musical. So if you like going to musicals and it's all dancing and singing, it's really fantastic. So
I'll put that on the list for the next visit.
yeah, Descendants. It's fantastic. And there's 3 of them, Di, so we often do marathons, actually.
I find that being a grandma, it's a total different emotion than being a mum. Yeah, it just takes it to a whole different level. And that's what I found really, really heartwarming. Just total different level to what I experience as a parent. And I think it's because you don't have, like, when you're a parent, you're probably just doing life. When you're a grandma, you get to experience life.
Yeah.
Kids.
And you stop and listen to all those little things that probably your kids said to you, but you were too busy, as you're saying, Jackie, to
Yeah.
take notice of.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the stick in the garden and the rock or the, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I must say I'm looking forward to having time, you know, with Lucas and that as he's growing up, and future grandchildren. And one of the things, because we actually moved away from my parents when my youngest was 2.5, so we didn't have technology back then, but mum and dad used to come over at least once a year, and we would go over to Tassie once a year. So they still got to have the grandparent experience and things like that. So having the fact that, yes, the technology does make a difference, the fact. So that's why I don't think I had any qualms about being in a different state, because we did it with our, I know they were awfully upset about it when we said we're moving to the mainland and that sort of thing, but they understood why we did it, because better work opportunities for everybody, including the kids. So yeah, it was a good move. And mum and dad always come and stayed at our place, and we would have them there for, they'd be there for a few days, not just an hour or two visit. They'd actually be in both sets of grandparents. So that was good experience for the kids. So, and I see the same thing being repeated here, is like when I go down to Melbourne, I'll spend 2 or 3 days with my son and his wife and Lucas, and they'll come here and they'll spend a few days. So we'll have that time together, not just the little snippets all the time sort of thing. So it's a different relationship, but it's, yeah, so I see that as a different, and I can't, and I think with being a grandparent at this day, you've got to just do what works for you, really. You've got to be yourself. You've got to work. You can't compare your situation with someone else's situation, because we're all different and we've all come from different dynamics and stuff. So it's like making your grandparent experience the best one it can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just add something with having 9 grandchildren is ownership of us as grandparents. So we've had a couple of experiences where some of them have been here together. Lindsay was sitting on the couch with the 3 girls watching something. And the boy that lives nearby, who's 7 now, has never gone over and sat on Lindsay's knee. But because the girls were here from the other family, he decided to walk over and get right in the middle and sit on Lindsay's knee. So it's a little bit like, this is my part. Because he's here all the time, and he sort of feels like he owns that one, So that was really interesting when that happened. We thought it was very funny.
Yeah, because the kids, they are their own little individual selves with their own opinions, and they'll have an experience that they've decided they're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for today. I hope you enjoyed our coffee chat, and yeah, hopefully we continue something like this all the time. It's really good, and it's really good to hear everybody's diverse opinions on the same thing. Really good. So thank you, ladies.
Thanks,
Thank
Lorene.
you.
Thanks, Lorene. Nice to meet everyone.
Yes, lovely to meet you all.
Thank you so much for listening to our coffee chat today on the episode of Wow, Love, Light, Inspire, the podcast especially for women like you, by inspirational women who are prepared to share their stories for you. I hope you got something from this episode and enjoyed it just as much as I did. I'd love to hear your opinions, your takeaways from the episode, so please share them in the comments. New episodes are released every Friday, so if you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends. Subscribe so you never miss another episode, and leave us a review. And do you have a topic that we could chat about? Do you know someone who would be an inspiration, who is an inspirational woman, who has done some amazing things in her life and might be really good to speak to us? If you do, please drop us a line, leave us a message in the reviews, and we'll get back to you, because we'd really love to speak to more inspirational women. You can find us and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or you can go to the website www.lovelightInspire.com. Thank you to my producer, Nissa. She's put this together for you. And also thank you to the amazing guests we've spoken to today. It was a real, start that one again. Start from thank you. Thank you to my producer, Nissa, who's put this podcast together for you. And a massive thank you to the guests who've given up their time to speak about what they know about today and share their knowledge with you. Please remember that the information spoken about today was just general information. So if you need help, please seek a professional. Thank you.